Hey everybody, Sean Sewell, the Engearment.com podcast. Today's episode is really going to be a lot of fun and really insightful and very helpful, especially this current moment in our lives. We're all going through COVID-19, stay-at-home procedures, and I'm very fortunate to have on this show Dr. Hanni Flaherty, clinical social worker. So welcome to the show, Hanni. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, a little background about you. You're out there in New York City with your husband, Matthew, who's on the show last week for a second time. So there's our tie-in. So he's married to a fitness professional, two wonderful kids that speak Mandarin. So that's going to come up, I hope. That's a fascinating topic. So, and I've had the pleasure, my wife and I have had the pleasure of hanging out with Hanni and Matthew and Steamboat. And so, Hanni, let's talk a little bit about what you do and why you do it. So how did you get into therapy? Helping people?
Sure. I think it goes back to regular path in life, went to high school, went to college because it was the right thing to do, didn't really know what I wanted to study. I ended up double majoring in college. I was a dance and psychology major. I believed very strongly in mind-body connection, and I still do. I had planned to go into dance movement therapy. I very quickly realized that wasn't going to be a lucrative career for me, and really just fell in love with social work. I had taken an internship that was social work related and not psychology related, and really just fell in love with the work. Went straight for my master's at NYU and worked right out of my master's in an outpatient mental health clinic specializing in adolescents. Was there for almost 10 years before returning for my PhD, and then taking a bit of a different turn into research and academia, but still doing the work.
Fantastic. So what a great, unique, or a nice path to go into doing this. And what was your goal going into therapy? What was the end game? What do you want to do to help people?
So when I first started therapy, being a therapist, I really just wanted to help people. And I think adolescence in particular is when we are trying to figure out who we are and who we're going to be as adults. And that felt like the right time to really make the most meaningful change.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that work for so long, and I really did enjoy it. But I felt there were a lot of gaps in the system, and I felt I can do more good.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much stigma around mental health services and receiving mental health services.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my research has really taken me and my education. So I'm also a full-time professor of social work. And that's really the movement that I'm trying to be part of now and push to destigmatize mental health services. How do we get more people who need care to care? Because there's good services out there, there's good interventions out there. Why aren't people receiving the care they need?
Oh, so well said.
That's been a moving force for me.
Yeah, I can feel you on that. As a person who admits to working through therapy, and I've gone through therapy for 20 plus years, it has saved my life time and time again. And I like to publicly admit that because I hope to break down the barriers and the stigma people might associate with seeking help. As you so well put, in your bio, I love this about, you should probably say it in your words, about the Band-Aid.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll share that metaphor in 1 second, but I also think it's important to remember most people who become therapists, and I'm no exception here, become a therapist for one of three reasons. Either they're really just drawn to help people because they're good people, which I think is the smallest portion.
Mm-hmm.
It's really something has happened in their life and they've received help from someone special and they want to be that special person and pay it forward. Or something's happened in their life and they didn't receive help. And now they want to be that person for others. So when you're thinking about going for help, most of us have been in a place where we've needed help and either have gotten it or not. So the therapist understands. We get it.
Yeah.
So the metaphor I think you're speaking to,
mm-hmm.
and I've used this metaphor in two different ways, is therapy, a lot of times it's like you fall and you will skin your knee.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an emotional skin your knee instead of a physical skin your knee. And sometimes a Band-Aid's enough. Whatever you've done in the past is enough. But what happens when that is not enough? If it's an injury and you've hurt yourself and you need stitches, you go to a doctor and you don't think twice about that.
Right.
But for some reason, people really hesitate before they go to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist because of the stigma, and they let that fester. So now you come to the therapist. It's not a nice, clean wound anymore. It's dirty, it's gross, it's build up.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, therapy doesn't always become that easy thing anymore. So the first thing we do is we rip off that Band-Aid, which hurts, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We have to get in there and clean out all of that grass and dust and whatever else is in there and that debris. Also, not easy, and I'm sorry, but we'll do it together. But then it starts to heal. And this is the cool part about therapy, is that it does heal, and we can do it together. And the work we do is proven.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will be better. Now, skin scars, I can't do anything about that. There will be a scar.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to us stays with us. We have the scars of our history, of our past, and things that happen. But scars tissue, as we know, is stronger than regular skin, and it makes us who we are. So what happens to us, we can build on, build strength, and makes us who we are. So
That's
I think that was the metaphor you were.
Yes. And so well, I'm glad you said it in your words. And it's true. Scar tissue is stronger. And also it proves that you've been through something, a challenge, an obstacle, a huge painful thing. And I'm covered physically and probably emotionally in scars because I've been through it. Yeah. And it's just, it's a nice reminder that you fought, you persevered. You're still here.
And then when other things happen in your life, like COVID,
mm-hmm.
you can handle it. Whatever tools and techniques you've learned to get through that other trauma, whether it's a big T or tall or small T trauma, mm-hmm. you can use those techniques for other traumas in your life.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I know everybody's going through COVID, the whole world together right now, which is really beautiful, I think, and very bonding for a lot of us. And to be honest, this last 2 months for myself, I'm not trying to brag, but I've really enjoyed it. I've had a good time. I've really enjoyed this like podcast and like what you're doing, tele-service, tele-fitness, and reaching out to family and loved ones I haven't talked to in a very long time. Heck, tomorrow I have a jam session with a bunch of friends. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. Zoom it or FaceTime, whatever it takes. And, to your point, once you overcome something, adversity, it gives you a new tool in your toolkit to handle life. And it's a beautiful thing. And if people are willing to face that and seek help from somebody like you, that's a wonderful thing. And I hope that people can get that message from you and from me and from other people, that it is okay to seek help, and it will only serve you in your best interest.
Yeah. And I also think there's a myth about therapists that it's forever, that it's never ending, that once you start it, it doesn't end. Most therapists don't think that way. Mm-hmm. You come to therapy, we have a goal, whatever that goal is, whether it's anxiety, depression, to get you through COVID unscathed. I'm glad that you're enjoying this. Not all of us are.
Fair. I'm
glad you're having a good time. Some of us who are chasing little kids and trying to homeschool and trying to keep our relationship going, or have left Manhattan with little children and have moved in with in-laws. Some of us aren't having such a fabulous time.
I see that for sure.
And there is anxiety, and there is stress, and there is some traumatic experience, and there is loss, and there is grief, and there is unknown, and there is loss of control. Yes. So there is, even though we are all in this together, it's the sense that we're all in the same storm. We're all in very different sized boats.
I love that. You're the second person to mention that in the last 2 weeks on the show. And I love that
saying. In the New York Times. I can't hold reference for that.
Well, so I like that saying a lot. We're not all in the same boat. You're right. We're all in the same storm. Different boats.
Different boats. We were planning our trip to Colorado, and that has been canceled. And that's really, I would love to be out in the mountains right now where my kids can go out the back door and have freedom. And that's part of the reason we came to Long Island. But my dear friends that are still in their apartments in Manhattan are having a very different experience of this, especially with their children and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. I lost track of what we were. So what we were saying is, so if you come to therapy for a purpose, we will accomplish those goals and send you back out into the world. You're not going to be in therapy forever. Yeah. You're not going to uncover some deep, dark secret you didn't know you had. It's not our goal.
Yeah.
There's not going to be some Freudian where you're going to lie on a couch and I'm going to sit there and take notes. And how does that make you feel? And if it's not one thing, it's your mother. This is not how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Therapy has changed. We are going to talk. We are going to explore. I'm going to ask you what your symptoms are. We are going to figure out how to reduce those symptoms, and you're going to go back out into the world. And if something else happens, you come on back.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to hear you say that. And I hopefully people, that makes more sense, because as a person who has gone to therapy for numerous things, it's not like you go there and it happens. You have to keep going, and there is a goal, like Hanni said, and the therapist helps you get to that goal. They don't want to see you forever. No, they don't want that.
If I'm seeing you forever, it means I'm not doing my job.
Yep. Good point. Very good point.
It means I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've seen a therapist as infrequently as 3 times, and I got to where I needed to go. And it was a very big topic. It was bereavement, actually. So, we talked about this before. I lost my mother, father, sister, and brother, and most recently my mother. And within 3 sessions, we're able to make a very big breakthrough from complicated grief to integrated grief, which is a very big topic to assimilate. But we were successful with it, and it's been great. So if that's hope for anybody out there, 3 sessions to handle like loss of that level, it's doable. So.
Absolutely. And it's not about forgetting or being able to, completely cope, but it gets you to a place where you can move on with your grief.
Yes.
And rejoin society and do what you need to do while managing your grief in a way that's comfortable for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very big topic that everybody listening to this is going to experience at some point in their life. Mm-hmm. So I wish them all the best with that path, and hopefully they do have good resources. And there's a lot of resources out there for free as well. There's some to pay for, obviously. If a person in this situation goes through hospice, at least in Colorado, they get 6 sessions with a bereavement therapist. So there's some hope there.
Yeah. And with the integration of telemental health, there's a lot that has changed thanks to COVID-19. I don't know if I can say thanks to COVID-19. Silver linings to this.
Yeah.
Telemental health is booming, and we're doing it in positive ways. And insurance companies are now paying for telemental health, which they weren't before. So if you have health insurance, you can receive quality care in your home through telemental health services, which would be similar to this, a Zoom session where I can see you once a week.
And I bet that's a lot, brings a level of comfort for a lot of people too, because now maybe they have agoraphobia or other anxiety issues they can do from their own home. That's very rewarding.
And if you live in a small town where the only therapist is your mom's best friend, you want to go to them.
Yeah, it might behoove you to look outside that bubble.
Well, when we think about, we met in Steamboat. How many therapists are there in Steamboat that specialize in adolescence or specialize in grief? If you are that one LGBTQ adolescent in the high school, of how many do you want to share that with someone who could potentially know your mother? So there's definitely openings for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. This is great, Hanni. I really appreciate unpacking this and making this more accessible for the people listening to this and watching this.
Yeah, I feel like we've gotten so deep so quickly.
I know. I love doing that. I like just going right for it. It's important. It's important to just get to the point sometimes. So your background, high-risk behaviors, anxiety, depression. Do you find oftentimes that depression is interwoven with anxiety and or anger? And I'm sorry. I kind of trailed off there for a second. I should have stopped the sentence with that. I know for myself, anxiety and depression wove pretty tightly, but I've seen with other people that I know, anger in there as well.
So I think, yes, anxiety and depression usually go hand in hand. And I think anger is, I'm going to unpack those two because I think those are 2 separate questions. So yes, anxiety and depression go hand in hand, or can be separated. It really depends on the situation and the client. But a lot of people do specialize, and therapists do specialize in both, because it is very common for them both to be there. And I think anger is such a fun emotion and such a powerful emotion. So if we think of our feelings as if they were colors, right? And we think of the 3 primary colors as our 3 primary feelings: happy, glad, sad. Happy, mad, sad, excuse me. So if happy is yellow, mad is red, sad is blue. And we think of all of the other feelings as some combination of those colors. And we can get as intricate as we want, right?
Yeah.
But all of our feelings can really come down to whether we're happy, we're mad, or we're sad. A lot of times, if something happens and it's positive, we know we can be happy. But when it's not positive, we don't know if we want to be mad or if we want to be sad about it.
Mm-hmm.
And usually sad isn't such a great feeling. So sometimes we lean into mad.
Mm-hmm.
It's a more powerful feeling. It gives us more control. We can be angry and scream and yell and punch walls and feel better about that than being sad and crying and not have power. So I think a lot of times we tend to lean towards mad when really we're feeling sad.
Wow. That's deep. I like that.
So,
That was well explained.
to think about. What?
That was very well explained.
So, that's something to think about a lot. And I think labeling our feelings is something we need to do more often. And what we also confuse a lot is our feelings and our thoughts. We very often confuse, is this a feeling that I'm having? Am I really mad? Or is this a thought that I'm having?
Interesting. Can we get a little deeper in that?
Yeah. So let's think of a situation. I'm stuck at home because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I had to give up my trip to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all my thoughts, but what is the feeling? The feeling is anger. The feeling is sadness.
Gotcha.
But sometimes we get so caught up in keeping those together that separating the two and saying, well, what is my feeling? What is my thought is really important, because the other piece we can add in that is, what is the behavior? So that thought, feeling, behavior triangle is also really important.
Nice.
In knowing what's going on.
This is really helpful. I like this.
Yeah, a lot of this is therapy, one-on-one stuff. Like, this is why we go to therapy, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I've never heard it explained so simply and effectively, the colors, the triangle. That was really good. So like you mentioned earlier, there's been some silver linings in this whole COVID thing. So it's great that the teletherapy is working out and the insurance is covering that better. That was something you were doing beforehand though, right? You were offering online education?
Yes. So one of my more recent areas of interest for research has been integrating technology into education and into therapy.
Mm-hmm.
This movement I saw coming, no matter what. People have been wanting to take more and more classes online. So my question has always been, how do we do it well? How do I, teaching something like math, I can do that online. But how do I teach something like social work?
Mm-hmm.
How do I teach empathy, engagement, these concepts in online? Obviously when it comes to asynchronous learning, that's impossible, but I can do it in synchronous learning if I put enough time and energy into it. So we were already starting to do that prior to COVID-19. Now, obviously, it's our only platform for the moment.
Wow. Very fortuitous that you were already heading that direction.
We saw it coming. A lot of people were already starting to want to take classes online. We have an international platform. I should probably mention I teach at Yeshiva University, Wurzweiler School of Social Work. So we already had a platform. We have students all across the country and internationally. We have a huge population in Israel and in Canada. So we're already trying to figure out how to get that education to them.
That makes sense. Yeah. And to try and relate to that too, I talk with Matthew and other people from Strong First and other fitness professionals. How great is it to be able to positively affect somebody outside of our little bubble, outside of NYC, outside of Denver, to go out there to Jerusalem, to go out to Omaha, Nebraska, and positively affect somebody. That's super powerful.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is, I came off a meeting earlier this morning where I was in Zoom meeting. One person was in Germany, one was in Israel. I'm trying to remember this. One was in LA, and 3 of us were in New York.
Wow.
Talking about some new technology we're trying to integrate. It was actually really cool. Voice recognition technology. We're trying to use role plays for education. Really cool stuff.
Cool.
To teach students how to be therapists. And they're all quarantined.
Mm-hmm.
They're all calling from their apartments. We have kids coming in, we have dogs coming in. And it was that idea again that we're all, even though different time zones, different parts of the world, we're all in this together.
Yes.
We're all in this, we're all doing this, we're all here. And we're working on this project together that's going to possibly change the way we learn.
Wow.
And it was just like this really great way to say, we're going to help people through this.
Mm-hmm.
If we can train 20 social workers to be good social workers while this is going on, how many people can those 20 social workers help?
Right. Wow. That's really cool. Very powerful.
So that's the idea. How do we get help to the people who need it?
Yeah. And I can imagine after this resolves, this whatever the new is, there's going to be a lot more people needing a lot more help.
And I think that's something to think about. The first wave of this was definitely physical, concerns. How do we keep ourselves safe?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's emotional.
Yeah.
And I think we're all feeling it. And we started off by talking about the mind-body connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely part of it. We're all feeling cramped. We're all feeling stuck. We're all feeling stuck inside. Now the weather's turning. Everyone's talking about, well, how do I get outside? How do I move? I'm feeling better now that I can go for a run. I'm feeling better now that I can go for a jog. There is that connection
Mm-hmm.
that yes, you are actually feeling better because you can go for a run.
Mm-hmm.
But when is that run not enough?
Yeah.
And how do you know?
That's a great question. With my background, I'm in the mountains 3 days a week at the very least, 2 of which is camping. So really more time in the mountains than almost in the city. And I've been doing it for 10 plus years. And then first week of March, maybe second week of March, not only my 3 main businesses, in-person fitness and coaching, closed down, but then my access to the outdoors closed down too. And I would never have ever guessed, because that was my personal therapy, going to the mountains, using that split board over there and doing all the things, right? But yeah, it's been 2 months, and I've learned to cherish like dog walks, just going like 100 feet that direction. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how people come out of this, and hopefully they this gives them context and appreciation for their favorite things, and they don't abuse those things like I probably was abusing the mountains and taking it for granted. And it's nice to have that go without something for a while to appreciate it. But yeah, interesting stuff. Is there one emotion or one set of emotions you think most people are feeling besides frustration, anxiety? You think there's a bit of grief? Like a lot of people have lost jobs, I know grief is not just for like loss of life. Grief can be for loss of anything.
Well, and I think, yes, grieving, but I think it's more than just the grief. I think it's loss of control and loss of identity.
Good point.
And I think those 2 losses, a lot of people are feeling intensely, but can't necessarily pinpoint it as that. Like you said, a huge part of your identity is being able to go out in the mountains. And although you're feeling that loss in the ability to do that, what does that leave for you without being able to do that? And if you've lost your job and that's part of who you are, I mean, we ask each other, what do you do for a living? When you introduced me, my title was the first thing we said. What I do is the second.
Right.
And if you've lost that, who are you? What is your next move?
Yeah. Oh, that's a very big point. And I know a lot of people I've had on here, whether they're fitness or athletes. I know athletes who have had missions, big ones, movie things, for Red Bull to go to South America to climb mountains. They can't do it because that's not safe. They can't do that. That's their identity. They're a professional athlete. They're a fitness coach. They're a kettlebell instructor. They are a lawyer. They are a whatever, and they can't do that. Then what?
Right. With the added issue of, finances and all the things that come up with loss of job. And, so who am I if I can't do what I love? But this is also an identity of what I've done. I put so much of my passion into in my life. And, we talk about athletes. This is what they've done for years and years and years to get to where they are. And now they can't even train for it. Who are they? And what is the world going to look like? And will they be able to go back to it?
Right.
And that loss of control is very difficult.
Yeah, it really is. Control. That's a tough one. What is this saying about controlling what you can control and accepting what you can't accept, right? There's a much more beautiful way of saying that, I'm sure.
Oh, are you thinking the AA mantra?
Yeah, the AA way. Yeah, exactly. Or, wisdom.
What is it? Higher power grant me power to accept what I cannot control, to control. Oh, I'll get it. Give me a
Yeah,
moment. Come back to me.
that's the one. Exactly. And I think it's very simple and it's very profound at the same time and very effective. Do my best to embrace it every day. But it's true, you can't control everything. And
Yeah.
most of us right now are in the situation we've never even fathomed when the control is like out the window, basically.
Yeah.
But how do we accept it? How do we, embrace it and make the most of it? It's been interesting watching people, handle it in different ways. And some days are better than others for everybody. Everybody's got a little bit, going on.
Mhm.
And, we talked about this before we push record, but a lot of my friends out here are firemen, firewomen. And I was talking with one on a Zoom call probably a month and a half ago. And I said, what's changed the most for you? And he's like, the domestic violence calls. Yeah. And that was pretty heartbreaking right there. And as a person who works with relationships, is there any kind of advice you might be able to give listeners, because we're all stuck together a little more than usual, than ever?
Yeah.
Any kind of quick advice, like take a break, things get escalated?
Well, I think domestic violence is definitely up, but whether it even gets to that level or not, interrelationships have been difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it becomes violent or not, your relationship with others is becoming difficult. We are all in high stress situations. Our communication is being tried. We are living together in small quarters. That is becoming difficult. And I think what we have to remember is a few things. One, we are not mind readers. No matter how long you have been with your partner, no matter how well you think you know your partner, you've met my partner. We have been, I don't know if you've heard our story or not, we have been together since I was 18 years old. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yes, we've been together since I was 18 years old.
Wow.
We've been together a long, long time.
Mhm.
And we cannot read each other's minds. As much as you think you know each other, you have to verbalize what you're thinking, what you need, and what you want.
Very
And it's
wise
only
words.
to be heard.
Yeah, listen to that. Oh, it's so true.
And I think that's really important. So you have to remember, we are not mind readers. You have to verbalize what's going on. If you need space, if you want space, if you're having a bad day, if you are just feeling icky, you need to verbalize that, because otherwise sparks are going to fly and no one's going to know why.
Mm-hmm.
I think also creating emotional space when we can't create physical space is really important.
Nice. Yeah.
And whatever that means. If that means this is my time, this is your time, I'm going to go take a bath, I'm going to go for a run, this is my corner, this is your corner,
Mm-hmm.
this is my reading space, creating some sort of emotional space or physical space is important.
That's very helpful.
Okay, saying tap out, I need my time.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't personal, but I'm going to go lock myself in a bathroom now.
Yeah, I fully get
Not
that.
only if you really need it.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. So, my office was in the living room of our condo up until about a month and a half ago, and we realized that we needed that space because we're both working from home. And so now I'm in the gym, and I've created my space here. It's like my little space to go create and work and communicate, and she gets to have her space over there to do the same. It's been a lifesaver. So I hope everybody can do that.
Yeah, we created a desk space. So we left the city. We felt we needed to with our children. And I created a little workspace for myself in the bedroom, which is where I am now. And so I worked very hard to create this space. And the first thing my husband does, love him dearly, is put his computer down on this desk.
Uh-huh.
And I said, absolutely not.
Uh-huh.
This is my space,
Mm-hmm.
mine. But like even just having his desk, his computer there was too much for me.
Uh-huh.
I needed it not to be here.
Yeah.
My space, his space. And that's okay. These are my needs, and I verbalize that, and that's what we need to do. And remember, again, we're in this possibly for a while longer. Verbalize your needs. He's not a mind reader. He didn't know. He was like, oh, there's space there. I'm going to put it in and plug it in. He didn't realize this is what was going on for me. And God love him. I'm the psychologically minded one in the relationship. There needs to only be one. That's fine. But I need to communicate that to him. And if it does spark and it does get violent and you do find yourself in a domestic violence situation, there is help out there. There's discreet help out there. I want to make sure you're aware. I can send you some resources for that,
That'd be
but there
great.
are a number of sites that you can get help discreetly
Hmm.
if you feel you need it.
That's very helpful. I'll definitely put that in the show notes as well. On that level, I was very fortunate for years to have trained a few social workers it- working in that area specifically.
Mhm.
And talking about mind-body connection, when they would come in some days, they needed some mind-body connection. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff out there in the world, and they see it, you see it. I've seen some of it, and yeah, we're all in this together. We're all trying to do our best, but yeah, the seeking help is very important. And if people are nervous about that, having discreet services is very for safety as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll put that in show notes for sure.
Yeah. And we talk about mind-body connection. One of my other areas when we talked about self-harm is non-suicidal self-injury among adolescents. So this idea that there is this mind-body connection, this goes deep.
Hmm.
People who are overrun with emotion can turn that inward physically. People who are saying, I'm having a really hard day, I want to go for a hard run.
Hmm.
Run so hard until they overrun. People who have some difficulty with eating disorders, overeating, undereating. I mean, there is a mind-body connection. And sometimes that's fine. If you're having a hard day and you go for a run, that is a great way for self-care.
Hmm.
But it's about knowing when that's not enough and when you need to seek more help.
That's a very good point. I think that'll resonate with a lot of listeners because even ones I've had on the show, professional athletes or semi-professional sponsored athletes, and I ask them, why do you run so far? Or why do you crush yourself so much? You're going for type 3 fun when type 1 fun would be enough, for type 2 possibly. And that's often, and you probably see this very often, that it's not enough. Like they need, it's addiction. They're running from something, a lot of pain. And by almost physical pain, it kind of fills that void.
Mhm. Well, that's what I hear number one from my adolescents who self-harm,
Mm-hmm.
that they self-harm because they are going through some emotional pain and that it doesn't make sense. You can't see that pain.
Mm-hmm.
So they will harm themselves because then that makes sense and that pain makes sense to them. Or it's a release that by harming themselves, they can release that emotional pain through the physical pain. And what we're talking about is no different.
Mm-hmm.
We're releasing that emotional pain through physical pain. Now, by all means, if it's a little bit of pain, so you want to go run a little bit of pain,
Mm-hmm.
go for it. I had a day with my kids today. I could not tolerate them. I went for a 20-minute run. That was a Band-Aid. Like we said, when is a Band-Aid enough? That Band-Aid was enough.
Mm-hmm.
But at what point would that Band-Aid really have not been enough?
Yeah.
And now we're not saying that everyone who's a marathon runner is doing it because of emotional pain. That is not what we're saying here.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I want to be very clear about that. I'm not saying that every athlete is doing this because of some deep-rooted emotional pain. I am not saying that at all. I think there's many athletes who are very talented what they do. Like I said, I was a dancer for years. I also was a competitive horseback rider. We'll go down that path another time. They're talented athletes, but there are some
Mm-hmm.
who do this work and push themselves to the edge because of emotional pain.
Absolutely. Well stated. Yeah. And that's true. 100% agree with what Hanni said. Not everybody out there doing athletics is this way, but we know several people who do push it. And yeah, that's who we're talking about, to clarify.
And clearing their head emotionally will probably make them better athletes.
Oh, for sure. Less injured,
Mm-hmm.
clear-headed,
Mm-hmm.
feel better about themselves, accept themselves. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Horseback riding. I learned more about horses, and there's two styles of horse riding,
Yes.
right? There's you can tell them. I'll mess this up. What are the two
And this
styles?
is like a lifetime ago. I feel like I've lived 1,000 lives. Like this was many lives ago.
Barrel racing? Were you barrel racing or?
No, I was English equestrian,
Very,
jumper.
that's the other one. Okay. Yeah, I am on our Engearment team.
I'm New York, East Coast. You're
Yeah.
Colorado. So
Yeah. Wild West, classy. Yeah.
I did not say that.
Well, I did, but that's my No, how that came up in my vocabulary was my Engearment riders. I'm bad with mirror today. It's over there. I have like 3 or 4 new ones, and they're really like very Western, like, full on mud boots, and just these women are badasses, and they're talking in a language I had no idea what they're talking about. This jargon's over my head. It's cool, what people get into. Well,
It's a lot of fun. And like I said, again, this is what all led me down my path. Love working with animals. For a while, I thought I actually did I was part of a study with equine therapy. That's using horses in therapy. One of our dogs, I don't know if Matt mentioned this, we're really into our dogs. We have 2 staffies. Our older girl that's probably around this room somewhere is a registered therapy dog. She sometimes comes to the office with me.
Cool.
And I don't know if you guys know what a staffy is. Those of you who don't, go look up a picture. They look like little pit bulls. And I think
Terrier,
really,
right?
what?
Stafford Terrier?
English Staffordshire Bull Terrier. You'll have to look up a picture, and I think it helps because when you hear therapy dog, a lot of times you picture little white fluffy things.
Mm-hmm.
This is not. This looks like a little mini pit bull. She's black, with a little white mark. She's adorable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes helps when you think of a therapist and see my little mini pitty, and it just helps a little bit.
Oh, dogs always help. And I've met your dogs a few times.
You have?
Oh, yeah. I met them. I was doing my Strong First SFG with Fabio Zonin was the lead instructor, and Doc Hartle. And then Matthew came by with one of the kids and the 2 dogs, hung out in the gym. And the dogs made the day better for sure.
So the well-behaved black dog is my therapy dog. That's my girl Wednesday.
She laid down. Yeah.
Well, she knows how to behave because she's a therapy dog. The really obnoxious brown and white one with the 2 different color eyes, yeah, that's Pugsley. That's not my therapy dog.
So Adam's family, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Took me a while to figure it out. My Wednesday. Wow, Wednesday. All right. Yeah. So I met your dogs. They're great dogs. They're very, very cute. Well behaved.
Yeah, but I think it helps to kind of shed that image of what therapy is and what it can be and all that.
Oh, I appreciate that. And we have 2 dogs as well, and they are like my best friends. They're everything to me. And when my sister was in hospice, my father and my mother, when I would go to visit, I was allowed to bring the dogs. They're very well behaved as well. And let me tell you, dogs bring out the best in a lot of people. Like, they just went in there, and people just more tentative and more receptive and more loving. And our dogs loved it, of course. They get more attention. Dogs, the best thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you've given us a lot to work with here. I'm going to have resources below for those of you who would like to seek more help, whatever that is to you. Dr. Hanni, is there anything else you'd like to leave the listeners with? It's been very, very helpful so far.
I hope so. Again, we will get through this. We will get out of this. The world may look different, but change is part of life.
Yeah.
Get through it by taking it one step at a time, one day. Oh, the Serenity Prayer just popped in my head. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the strength to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Was that the one you were thinking of?
That's the one. That was the one. Nailed it.
Serenity Prayer. So, it comes from an AA mantra. For those of you who don't know AA, it's Alcohol Anonymous. And you can change God with higher power or whatever you'd like.
I did that. That was really cool.
But that's kind of the idea. God grant me the strength to accept things I cannot change the strength to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Take every day one step at a time. Do what you can to get through today. Tomorrow will come. Tomorrow will be different, even though it doesn't feel different right now.
Yeah.
We'll get through this. And, there's no right way to quarantine. I know everyone's being pressured to do it the right way, and whatever that means, we'll get through it. Keep yourself in as best mental health and physical health as you can. Keep your children in as best mental and physical health as you can. Your partners in as best mental and physical health as you can. Express your needs and get help when you need it. And whatever that looks like to you, you can find that.
Oh, very well said.
No shame in that.
No shame. Then hopefully people take that away from this. There's no shame in seeking help. I mean, I wouldn't be here without seeking help. I know a lot of people I care about would not be either.
I wouldn't be here without seeking help. I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing. I hope maybe I change your idea of what a therapist looks like or how we talk. But coming into the office when I have an office that's collecting dust in Midtown. It's very different, but this is what therapy looks like now with telemental health and the different platforms. And some of them, you don't even have to turn your video on. It can remain very confidential. It's very private. Yeah. And again, there's different levels, so social work, psychiatrist, psychologist, licensed mental health counselor, there's all sorts of different acronyms, and you can look up the differences, but we're all mental health professionals. We're all psychotherapists. We're here to help.
That's so awesome. Well, Dr. Flaherty, you've done a great job of making this more approachable for our listeners and viewers. So thank you for that. And all the best to you and Matthew and the boys and the dogs. And to you listeners and viewers out there, from a personal level, again, like I said many times throughout the shows, and this show in particular, I've gone through therapy. It saved my life. It can save yours. We'll put as many resources as possible below in the show notes. And much love to you and your families. And thank you for your time, and take care.